All right, welcome in. It's Tuesday. It's time for Full Court Press. Rob Bino, it's $5 Tuesday. And after troubleshooting all day yesterday, it does look like it's going to be RIP to my computer, which I guess, Rob, back in there used to be a time where you bought something and you just used it until it broke. Like, I truly believe they make these things to fail. Kelly Stewart was like 2.5 to 3 years, you got to throw that thing out and get a new one. And I was like, I don't know. I feel like when I got this laptop, it was like the best laptop you could get back in 2021 when I got moved to WagerTalk. So apparently that's too long. So I've been told. So we're going to retire this one to the last day. I'll have my new one tomorrow. So hopefully we can get through the show without any issues today.
Perfect. Yeah, I had to go out and get a new one myself about 4 months ago. Yeah, it is crazy, Adam. It's like the iPhone. As soon as you get a new iPhone, 6 months later, it's not good enough. There's a new iPhone. So technology has us without question. But today looks like a huge card. Decent day yesterday. Well, I won't even say decent day, 50-50 yesterday, because I did have the Sacred Heart team total, as you guys know. But I followed that up with a play on our boy Fran McCaffrey and the Penn Quakers, who I thought would be able to score on Harvard, and that did not happen. Low scoring game. Tommy Emiker's team imposed their will, which is a lot more pedestrian, and Penn didn't quite make it to the finish line with their team total. But we'll take the 1-1. If that's the worst we're going to do, we're fine with that.
Rob Bino, I had a 2-2 day yesterday, but in the most satisfying way possible, because my 2 4%ers won, my 2 3%ers lost. So if you're going to split, that is absolutely the way to do it. Ended up winning like maybe 1.2 units yesterday. So going in the right direction. And yeah, you made a great point. We're going to get right into it. It is a huge Tuesdays are really like I feel like they're all feature games, or there could be about 5 or 6. We could just do a show of quote unquote feature games. You know how that is not how this show works. We're going to talk about the games that you guys want to talk in the chat. But to start it off, I felt like we should go with the ranked versus ranked, the one ranked versus ranked matchup today down in the SEC. Vanderbilt, Arkansas. I have to be honest, I got Arkansas a little bit wrong over the weekend. I guess I didn't bet the game, but it did come up on our last call show. And I just thought Arkansas was just a significantly better team than Georgia. I thought they were going to probably have no problem with them in that spot. Saw a little bit of value in Arkansas as a dog. And then, in hindsight, I said, oh, no, they had the look-ahead spot of all look-ahead spots this weekend, having to play Georgia with what was at the time one loss Vanderbilt coming to Fayetteville tonight. So, Rob Bino, did Arkansas look ahead a little bit over the weekend? And do you see a more focused Razorbacks team here?
Boy, it's hard to say in the SEC, and coaches can tell us best if you overlook anybody in this league, other than LSU without Dean Thomas right now. And they're still a quality basketball team. It's just tough to go anywhere in this league and come up a winner. Georgia, the number one offense in the nation as far as point production per game is concerned. So it's not going to be easy when you go there. But I want to start this, Adam, if the chat will allow me to pat myself on the back. Sometimes we come on these shows and we say things ahead of time that prove to ring very true. I want to quote you on Vanderbilt head coach Mark Byington. I had said this last week. I didn't know that it would occur this quickly, and I think I made that notation at the time. Mark Byington, we're not as deep as I want to be right now, but hopefully we'll get Frankie Collins back at some point pretty soon. I think when we're at our hole, I think we could do even better with the versions that we have, even better than this. Last week I had said, you know what, at some point in time, I think Vandy's going to be affected by depth without Collins, and he's out an extended period of time, right? And I just didn't know that it would hit this quickly, or that the coach would recognize it this quickly. Byington goes on to say, we'll keep getting better. That's going to be the thing of our focus moving on. We're going to learn this type of failure in the middle of January is not permanent. This type of game, it could be something that really helps us. Of course, he refers to the game they lost the other day to Florida, which also came up on our last call segment, Adam, Vandy, Florida. And I think that was one where you thought Florida, you wouldn't want to be betting against Florida. That turned out to be correct. Here's the thing with Vanderbilt right now that I noticed last 2 games. They're on a 2-game losing streak right after being undefeated. The first 16 games that Vanderbilt played this season, only one time did a team shoot better than 46% or 46% or better from the field. Last 2 games, 52-9, almost 53% to Texas, 52-5 to Florida. Those are huge numbers by the standard that the Vanderbilt defense had set. That's 6% higher than 15 of the previous 16 teams had shot against them. The only other team to shoot over 46% from the floor against Vandy was UCF way back on November the 8th. So they had gone a long time playing really good defense. We always lead with their offense because it's been spectacular. It was great the other day, too, watching that game from start to finish, having a little bit of a play on the full game total. And obviously it went way over. They shot 51% themselves. They just couldn't match Florida. When push came to shove, Florida always had an answer. We'll see if this Vanderbilt defense gets any better, Adam, because you know what? Going to Fayetteville, you better bring a defense. Last 4 home games Arkansas's played in this gym. Bud Walton, home against Louisville, win 89-80. Home against JMU, 103-74. Home against Tennessee, 86-75. Home against South Carolina, the most recent, 108-74. 4-0 straight up, 4-0 against the spread, 4-0 games over the total, 4-0 team total over, wins by 9, 29, 11, and 34. I get it that those 4 aren't the elite of the elite competition where competition is concerned, but Louisville had Mikal Brown in that game. JMU, okay, Sunbelt team. Tennessee, top tier SEC team. South Carolina, noted for being a good defense, gave up 108 to this team. Arkansas also is off a loss, which situationally, you just talked about the Arkansas loss to Georgia, situationally makes this tough. Want to call for a Vanderbilt bounce back because they lost back-to-backs? Well, then you have to bet against Arkansas off a loss at home where they've been dominant. Point spread's probably right where it should be, Adam. I don't know which way to go with this game. I could, like I say, make a case for both. I think if I had to at this point in time, I would lean Arkansas at home just off of the results that they posted. And, you know, I don't want to slight Vanderbilt in any way, shape, or form here because you can't. But it does seem like they're in one of those in-season ruts that everybody goes into, no matter how good you are, and especially on the defensive end, that maybe it takes another road game to get out of. And maybe next time they get back home to Nashville, I'll look Vandy's way. But for this one, slightly in Arkansas, just quick check of the current total here where we're sitting. 173.5. I mean, that's probably right on target too. They're telling you this game should go somewhere in the vicinity of 87-86 Arkansas, 87-88-86 Arkansas. I can't argue that. So it's a lot of analysis for not really wanting to play a game, Adam, but I don't want to play this game.
I thought your analysis was sound. I'm not even going to really, rehash it because I'm in agreement with slightly in Arkansas. I thought you did a great job breaking the game down. So I'll point out just a couple of other things that I think maybe support slightly in Arkansas over the weekend. They did get beat by Georgia. Georgia hit 12 threes in that game. I think Arkansas probably played the game they wanted to play. Like if that Georgia team's just gonna hit 12 threes on you, you almost have to tip your cap a little bit. They won the rebounding battle. Arkansas themselves on the road 5 for 21 from 3 in that game. That was probably the difference. But again, I don't know that they like. I don't think that that's a horrible result. Georgia cracked the top 25 with that win. Listen, winning on the road in the SEC is not easy, and I think that's where I'll just wrap this up. This has been going on for years. Arkansas at home, SEC games, very tough to beat. Arkansas at home this year, very tough to beat. 10-0, I believe, coming into tonight at the Bud Walton Arena. I'm with you, Rob. This isn't the spot that I want to suddenly jump back in with Vandy. I really think that this also has to do with, now you're in SEC play. It's the best conference in college basketball by for many people would say that this is the toughest league in college hoop. Yeah, you had a great non-conference, winning games like VCU and St. Mary's in the Bahamas or whatever, or Atlantis or wherever those games were, is impressive. The blowout win over SMU, but like they really haven't experienced until this point a schedule that has you play Bama, sends you to Texas. Now you're home against Florida, who desperately needs a win. Now you're back on the road at Arkansas. Listen, losing 3 or 4 games in a row in a league like this is not uncommon. And I don't think Vandy's immune to that either. So I'm with you. I lean toward Arkansas, but I don't know if I'm getting enough having to, I think the number is fair. I don't think there's really any value on the spread. I just don't know if there's enough there for me to jump in, make it a client play, but I certainly lean toward the Razorbacks. And again, I said when I left the game with Brian Power, East Lansing, we were there early in the year. I said, this is an Arkansas team that I will be in. I'm going to probably want to be on them in February and forward, just because I feel like that's what Calipari gets the best out of his teams. So we'll learn a lot tonight, in my opinion, in this game, Rob Bino.
And in Mark Byington's opinion, too, we'll learn a little more. So everybody's going to learn tonight, Adam, from this game.
Listen, we're here to learn, but we're also here to find winners. So that's what we're going to do. You know what I just decided, Rob? Because we keep splitting the parlay, and we got to make sure we get the payoff when we hit the parlay. Today is a 3. We're doing a 3-teamer today. I don't know where that third game's coming from. Maybe it comes right here from Garth. Maybe we'll ask him if he wants to be put on the spot. Bayou probably will roll in at some point. But Garth, appreciate your donation to the show as always. He wants to go to the Big East. Crazy game in the Big East yesterday, Providence and Marquette. Listen, Rob, the Big East might be down. It doesn't mean that it's void of entertainment, great basketball games. Providence Marquette got up in the hundreds yesterday. OT. Garth wants to go DePaul Butler. He says he leans DePaul plus 7.5. I'm going to let you kick this off, Rob, because you started to talk about DePaul on Friday and would have been right about that game. Had it maybe it did make your card. I don't remember, but kick us off. DePaul Butler in the Big East.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue plus 7.5 with DePaul. I mean, to quote colleague and friend Ski Profit, if I can't trust you to get stops, how am I going to lay this type of price? And you can't trust Butler to get a stop. What you can trust Butler to do is score. And I don't know that DePaul has it in their bag to stop Butler from scoring here. First place I looked, Garth, in this game immediately was, of course, game total and Butler team total. To me, I have to be honest, this total, even being bet up, seems low. 146.5 up to 150. I'm not going to say that it can make the heights of Providence Marquette, but I see this game in the same way that I saw Vanderbilt, that we saw Providence Marquette yesterday. It's just an offensive basketball game here. Butler's going to score. They're going to allow you to score. At home, they should be able to score on DePaul. The Butler team total here is 78.5 or 77.5, 78.5. Shop around. Again, we always say this, shop around for best number, because you can find 77.5s out there if you do like the Butler over side. But wow, I just threw myself right off track here with my train of thought. Too many things going on between these ears, Adam. But very simply put, to the answer on the side, there's no way I would lay it with Butler, even though it's a home team that can score. You just can't try. And DePaul, let me say this about DePaul. They play with a lot of fight. And that's a team that's going to fight for the full. If you bet DePaul, you're going to get your money's worth at least. Whether you cover or not, you're not going to walk away and say they quit on you, they're lazy, they're this, they're that. They're none of those things. I think they're going in the right direction. I think they're going in a better direction than Butler. But every year, whether it be college football, college basketball, NFL, NBA basketball, I tend to tag teams as over teams. And Butler's one of those where I just continually, if I don't bet a Butler game over, I'm probably not betting it at all. For me, I think the most value could lay or could lie in this full game total over. And I think I remember what I was going to say now. I see the winner of this game in the 80s. And so at 77.5, if Butler wins, they're probably going over. But to me, Garth, that was the biggest surprise that they opened this 146.5. And money, the market obviously sees it the same way. They have pushed it to 150.
Yeah, I've made my round so far in the Big East, Rob Vino. I think I've been to 3 or 4 Big East games now, past month or so. One of the first Big East games I saw this year in person was St. John's and DePaul. And before that game, I noted we actually you had Jim Root on the show that day, so I didn't do the show that day. I went after the Drexel game. It was a rare missed show for me, but I noted the kind of like just I think on Twitter that day because I had some time to tweet between games that I really felt like this could be the year, and it's a twofold. One, the Big East that we've sort of outlined on this show the whole time. This is a pretty down year for the Big East. It's just not a good year across the board for the conference. Yes, UConn is a very good team, and they belong in the conversation for national. They're one of a handful of teams that maybe could win a national championship. But when you get outside of that, this conference isn't very good. And I think it is the perfect year for DePaul to overachieve. I thought that this team is, someone in the chat says DePaul 12-5 against the spread. Makes complete sense. I thought this team was pretty undervalued coming into the season. Again, they were put behind a lot of other teams in the Big East coming into the season that they aren't necessarily worse than. That they weren't necessarily worse than at the time. And now clearly they aren't worse than, because so many of these teams have had, Georgetown 1-6, but as Ed Cooley says, Rob, we got NIL money. There's worse things, right? There's worse things than being 1-6. Maybe an all-time quote from a coach right there. Marquette, maybe one of the worst seasons that I can't remember a worse Marquette season. 7-13, 2-7 in league play. So, by default, like if all of these teams are going to underachieve, someone's going to bump up the ranks. I think that team is DePaul. Butler's another one of those teams, 2-5 in league play. I've fallen for the Butler trap a couple of times. I played them last week against Xavier, a Xavier team that actually was one of the teams that should be near the bottom because they have a new coach and they're in a complete sort of year zero, in my opinion. And Butler got destroyed by them. So how would I lay 7.5 with this Butler team here? Could they come out and cover? Yeah, they could. If I bet DePaul, will they? Yes, because this team owns me. Can't get them right. I can't get Butler right to save my life. I go against them. I think I had Wright State earlier this year against Butler. I was getting like 20-something points. It was a 3-point game at halftime, and Butler scored 60-something in the second half. So for me, Garth, I just have not been able to get on the right side of a Butler game. But I know they're not very good, and that has played out because they're 2-5 in league play. So I absolutely cannot put you off the DePaul side here. I love what Holtman's done. I think they're going to be I think DePaul is headed for potentially, I think they could crack the top 5 in this league. I'll go on record saying that. I think DePaul could make it to 5th in the Big East this year. I really do think that they're better than a lot of these other Big East teams. So I can't put you off that. I think the number's fair, but DePaul, yeah, I could see them hanging around tonight.
Just real quick here to finish this off, Adam. Butler beats Seton Hall the other day at Seton Hall. Score 77 on the Hall, despite 4 of 18 3-point shooting. Garth, to what I was saying earlier, that game, Butler Seton Hall hits 143 with 7 for 35 combined 3-point shooting. 20% from 3 by those two teams. 35 chucked up, only 7 went in, and they still got to 143. So I think that the shooting from beyond the arc would be a little bit better there by each side here tonight.
I'll just let you read Trevor's comment. I don't disagree with it. He's not wrong. But hey, this is what we're talking about. This is how mediocre this league is. Seton Hall comes out, nearly comes back, nearly gets UConn, turns around. Butler goes into their building, destroys them as a 6.5-point dog. Now you want Butler to turn around and win and cover 7.5. I think just like that logic would probably point me to Garth's side with DePaul as well. All right, Rob Vino. I see people in the chat talking about it. I was waiting for one person to bring it up because the feature game tonight is in the MAC conference. It's in Kent, Ohio. The Miami Redhawks are unbeaten. What a game over the weekend. One of the best games of the year. A tip out 3 to tie the game, send it to OT, and then Peter Suter just rocks his defender to sleep. Pull up 3 in his face for the win. Miami of Ohio stays unbeaten, and now they head to the MAC Center on the campus of Kent State University, where I believe my guy DJ Smills is still there. Great in-house DJ, one of the best I've come across to this point. He's going to have the place hype. I actually think on Twitter he still has my comment pinned from like a couple of years ago. So anyway, it's a great atmosphere. Kent State. We talked about this on Friday. They beat Toledo, and I said, Rob, last year Kent State had a down year. Okay, going into the season, they had won like 30 something. I think they had won like 30 or something, or like 20. It was like 28 straight home games. It was getting up there. The home win streak that they had carrying over from their NCAA tournament team the year before. And they just had a down year last year. This year, on opening night, they lost at home to Troy in overtime in a game where they easily could have won. There was 100. I think both teams cracked 100 or got very close to 100. And they haven't lost since. 10 straight home wins. It looks like the MAC Center home court edge is alive and well. The kids are back. Does Miami of Ohio lose their first game tonight, Rob?
My personal opinion is, and I didn't have, or I haven't had the, I don't know, cojones, whatever you want to call them, to pull the trigger yet. I just feel like Miami's running out of time now with the undefeated record, right? At some point in time, they'll have a loss tacked into that column, and there's probably no better chance than having them come off the game that you just described, dramatic OT win, so close to losing, pull it out, and then have to march on to Kent, who's probably the second best team in this league. They've been dominant. They score almost at will when you watch it. Like I get Toledo's a bad defense, and we did talk about this game the other night. But Kent does what they want to do whenever they want to do. The problem, of course, is that they give it up as well. And Miami's the number 1 effective field goal percentage shooting team in the country. So you have the best shooting team against a defense that'll give it up. It's going to be a back and forth by all statistical metric numbers. But I think Kent at home probably is the place where the streak ends for Miami. Like I say, you watch enough seasons of this, and believe me, I've seen my share of seasons, and you get the feeling, and in the business, we kind of call it gut feeling. When you see a game, and I referred to it, the Miami close call, barely keep things alive, celebration afterwards, and then have to go on the road to an extremely good conference foe. I just see it ending here. However, Kent has to do it. It would probably be high scoring. The total indicates that. I think Kent matches up real well. Here's the thing. Kent, even if they get Miami, even if they get a big lead, Kent is capable of the comeback. The crowd is capable of pushing them through the comeback. If Kent gets a big lead, Miami's capable of the comeback. Number tells you it's going to be close. It has shifted from Kent -1 to Miami of Ohio -1, 167.5. Big push down in the total, Adam. Not sure I agree that we come down that much. Maybe somebody thought 172.5 was too high, but to be 167.5 right now, I'm not so sure. I do personally think Kent will win this game. Haven't bet it, so I don't want anybody to rush to the window. But I also think that it's time to push back on this total. To me, 85-83 cashes your ticket, and that sounds more than reasonable in this game. Oh,
yeah, I got it. Here we go. I was actually, I was just texting with Brian Power. It looks like We are going to try to go to the Miami of Ohio game at his alma mater in Athens on the final day of the season, Rob. So selfishly, I'd love Miami of Ohio to be unbeaten going into that game. Do I think that's going to happen? No. However, if someone doesn't get them soon, they've actually played that's actually one of the crazier things for Miami of Ohio in terms of their MAC schedule. If they win this game, Rob, they will have played the harder part of their MAC schedule already. Like, I don't think they have to play Akron again. So the MAC is not balanced. You don't play everyone twice. So again, I don't have it in front of me here. I'm going off memory, but I don't think they would have to play either of these teams after today. So if they get through this one, they're going to have to, they do play Ohio twice. And yeah, I don't even know if they have to play Bowling Green again. But, as far as this game is concerned, listen, Kent State, the edge they probably have here is rebounding. If they win the glass, they're going to be in a good position to win this game. Does it mean they're going to win? I mean, it's going to be tough to find a better offense, a more efficient offense than Miami of Ohio. They're as good as it gets. The way they space the floor is incredible. Like, they deserve to be in this spot. Like, that's, I guess, the point I'll try to make here is it's not a fluke that they've won the games that they've won to this point. Yes, they pulled a rabbit out of the hat against Buffalo, who is a good team this year. That's a good Buffalo team. So to me, it's really tough because do I think this is the most likely spot for like a slip up, go on the road and lose? Yes. Do I even think that like theoretically Kent State might be a better team than Miami of Ohio because Kent State played tougher non-conference schedule and they're only one game behind the Red Hawks in conference play. So if Kent State comes out and wins this game at home, where they've been very hard to beat, they have the same record as Miami of Ohio in conference play. I think my path to a play here, Rob, would be if Miami of Ohio takes more money and then it pushes it on the other side of 2. I think it's I think they flipped to a 1.5 point favorite. I think if you could get me to Kent State plus 2.5 right here, I'd have to put some thought into that. That sounds like the buy point for me. Ahead of that, it would just be a slight lean toward Kent State based on the fact that they're home, where they've been very good, and it feels like the spot that it finally comes crashing down and Miami of Ohio takes their first loss. All right, let's get a quick promo in here. Did you have something to add? I think you're muted now. I think you might be muted now.
You are right. I was muted. Dog was barking. I shut him down. Here's what's crazy and why staring at statistics and metrics all day long don't necessarily always point you in a correct direction. Miami of Ohio got the 332nd offensive rebound percentage in the country out of 365 teams. So they're 24th worst offensive rebounding team in the country, which would lead you to believe that, man, they can't hit the offensive glass for second chances. But of course they're 332nd because there's everything goes in the country and nothing comes out. Everything goes in the hoop. So again, for those who are just getting into this stuff and watching us on a daily basis, and you want to try and you're already doing your own handicapping, or even if you've been doing it for a while, you'll notice these things where, if you're making every shot, of course there aren't going to be any offensive rebounds. And boy, Miami 5-8 in 2-point field goal percentage and 3-point field goal percentage, and number 5 in free throw percentage. Just nothing doesn't go in the hoop that they shoot.
All right, we're going to continue on. Yeah, I wouldn't listen. That's the type of game where I think you could make a sound argument for either team. And it's like, I think you could probably sell me either way. But yeah, that's, those are, they make great watch. It's going to be one to watch. Very similar to Vandy, Arkansas. I don't know if I'll get to the window there. Okay. Couple promos quick. The first thing, I mean, this is amazing. I'm going to promo. How does Andy Lang have a Discord? I swear to God, there's 5 Andy Langs. Like he there's got to be 4 of him. Or he never, ever, ever sleeps. I thought I didn't sleep. I think he might never sleep. So promo, Andy has a Discord. That's news to me. That's awesome. Garth posts in there where he's done extremely well, which tracks because he comes on this show all the time and has typically, blessed us with a win. So shout out to Andy for running a Discord. That's tremendous stuff. And you can see him at noon every day right here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel for WagerTalk today. Rob Bino, what's the promo today? Obviously, it's Tuesday, but what else do we got to talk about?
Well, real quick here. No disservice to you or I, who are one-man bands, but I've talked to Andy before, and I do believe Andy's got a team around him. So Andy may have a few extra hands, aside like you and I are just one-man bands. We don't have extra hands.
He's in the chat.
All these other things.
Oh, no, that's his. Is that an Andy burner? It's just Andy is truly awesome. He's
The
got burners,
crowd-
too.
You know what? We all love Andy, and yeah, he's a hardworking dude. So kudos to Andy, and kudos to Garth for that 50-26 record inside Andy's Discord channel. Real quick here, Adam. Aside from $5 Tuesday, it's of course double the firepower. Man, why do I have so much trouble remembering our own?
It's me, guys.
Here. Double the CBB firepower. Oh, Andy is truly awesome.
That is just his handle. That's not his burner. That's just him. He says he has our show on every day. That's a huge compliment. I very much appreciate that, because I know how hard we work and how busy it is, and it is hard to watch all of the content. So that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's a great guy too. I've had the pleasure of spending some time with him. Double the CBB firepower. All of mine, all of Adam's selections for any 3-day period that you choose. Once you join, you'll get every play for 3 consecutive days. Includes 5% selections from either one of us. It's just $59. I believe that's the price point on that 3 full days. As you see, you do get a batch of selections from each of us, and they do vary. Adam's more of a sides guy. I'm more of a totals guy. So you'll get a good mix of both. On top of what we already give you on the show, whatever you request, we try and analyze for you, whether we come up with a selection or not. But if you do visit either one of our home pages, which are always scrolling on the bottom of the screen there, or wagertalk.com, you can pick up your double the CBB firepower. I'll just promo real fast the fact that since December 1st, again, Adam, number 2 at WagerTalk, it's been a great run here for the last, now I think it's 7-week run now. So if you want to purchase, go over to wagertalk.com. Find it there. Double the CBB firepower. 3 days, $59. All plays that the 2 of us release.
And Andy Lang's in Indiana, I believe. Graduate. I think he went to Indiana. I know he's in Indiana.
Had to be proud last night.
I mean, that's incredible run for Indiana football. And that'll be our segue, because I see Garth has jumped back in with another donation, which we very much appreciate. He says IU Michigan. Think Indiana basketball team slumps after last night's championship win by the football team. Well, that's an interesting angle, Garth. It's an interesting way to look at it. The other thing is they got to play Michigan, which might not be very easy, slump or not, right? Like Michigan is, still they Rob, do you think Michigan got put on the back burner a little bit because some of these other teams are still unbeaten? And do you think that they've suddenly gone under the radar just a tad because of all the hoopla surrounding Nebraska, Miami, Ohio, and Arizona, who are still unbeaten? Because at one point I thought Michigan was the clear best team in the country.
Yeah, I know. I thought that for quite a while, since Thanksgiving tournament time. I watched a lot of Michigan and thought, man, who's going to beat these guys? And then they just continued to rip off offensive performances that would lead you to believe that nobody could stop them. But the offense is kind of, I don't want to say it's slumped, because obviously they're still scoring, but Michigan has not produced the way they produced earlier on this season. And that's the effect of conference season, right, Adam? As soon as you hit conference season, things do start to change a little bit. I don't think that the team is any worse than they were to start with. I would agree with you that maybe there's not as much chatter about Michigan at this point in time. I go back to the Wisconsin game where they took their only loss, 91-88. And really, they had multiple opportunities down the stretch to win that game. They just didn't make shots. A team that consistently made shots, could not make shots, wide open threes. I think I said this on the show back when it happened, Adam. The basketball gods should have been kinder to Michigan that day because the ball movement on offense for Dusty May's team was absolutely wonderful. You know, you always hear the saying, pass up a good shot to get a better shot. That ball was working around, and then they would just miss the three. And it's like, God, that thing deserved to go in just because of the work to pass the ball, to find the best shot. You know, they beat Oregon, not in really convincing fashion, but then again, that was a 2-day road trip to the Pacific Northwest where they came away with wins. And sometimes in conference play, we've talked about the leagues that do have the difficult travel. That's all you can ask. Win by 10, 2 times in a row. Power ratings may still have them a little bit overrated, but now they're back home where they like it the best. And I'm not so sure that they don't break out again here tonight against Indiana. I want to get the exact number before I close out here so I can give you some type of, so right now it's been bet down to 15.5, which I think is correct. I do think the power rating on Michigan may still be a little bit too high, and that doesn't correlate to you saying they're not getting as much national attention. National attention and power ratings from Vegas and offshore bookmakers have nothing to do with one another. But here we see a little bit of movement towards Indiana. Our markets bet them 2 points worth, and the total's going up to 163.5. I somewhat agree with that. What I agree with mostly here is that Michigan's team total should get up there again tonight. It's 89.5, probably find their way to 90 back home. We'll see if that makes the card, but that would probably be my totals lean. And from a side perspective, 17.5 was worth taking. 15.5. Maybe we're probably lost a little value here. I think I wouldn't be tempted by 15.5.
Yeah, the tough part here is that Indiana is pretty buy low right now, right? Like they've lost 3 straight. You know, losing at home to Iowa last time out, I would say was the spot where many people probably thought Indiana was in a good spot to bounce back, get crushed by Michigan State, you know, lose the game to Nebraska that they had a lead in for a lot of the game, Rob. You know, that could have been Nebraska's first loss. Matchup wise, Indiana's going to have, you know, they haven't shot it as well on the road. They're going to have to shoot the ball. I don't know that you're just getting inside and scoring on Michigan near the rim. So going to have to shoot it okay here. But Michigan, you do make a good, I mean, they've been quite inflated from a market standpoint for a while now. Even on their most recent West Coast trip, they win both of those games by double figures. They don't cover either, right? I believe they were, I think the lines in those two were 12.5 and maybe as high as 18 against Oregon, if I remember correctly. So didn't cover either of those numbers. I do think Michigan at some point is going to bury someone. Maybe that's Ohio State on Friday that they really just, you know, hang a number on. This number feels right. I could see, listen, if Michigan comes out and wins by 20, I won't be surprised. But it's an awfully big number to lay against an Indiana team that's lost 3 straight and is kind of coming in a little bit of a desperate spot as well. So interesting one. I think Michigan, though, down the road is a team I'm going to look to buy in with. Maybe the buy for them, especially if it's a closer game tonight. Maybe the spot for Michigan is Friday when they play Ohio State on the same floor.
Yeah, and real quick here, I love doing this show with you because it always triggers a secondary thought. I had a quote from Darian DeVries from Indiana, but you referenced the Nebraska game, and that was a game where I played Indiana first half. They did win the first half. Nebraska came from 16 down in the second half, but I played it for a specific reason that could come into play here too. And I get Michigan's got game tape on Indiana now, right? But it's the first time around for a lot of these Big Ten teams, ones that haven't played Indiana yet, to see the difference in Indiana and Darian DeVries' system as opposed to what they had played previously. And it caught Nebraska a little bit off guard, I think, in the first half. And then they adjusted. Second half came from way back and won. Could be the same thing here for Michigan. I mean, you could use that argument. Maybe Michigan doesn't recognize exactly these sets and everything that Indiana's running. It's a little bit different. DeVries said a problem his team must remedy. Oh, wait a minute. For the first 15 games of the year, our offense was moving and cutting. We were getting and playing the way that I think makes us most successful. I feel like the last 2 or 3 games, we've gotten away from that action, which correlates with what you were saying about them being on a 3-game skid, just not doing the things that the coach, the principles that the coach has for their offense. So we'll see if they get back to it tonight.
Yeah, and a good point here from Trevor. I think a good way to finish this one out, I mean, how much is the Indiana basketball team really partying because the football team won? I feel like they probably watched the game together, were thrilled, probably just, kicking it inside their sweet ass, sports only dorm facility. And then they probably just went to bed. It's not like 30 years ago where they would have been out probably getting hammered till 4 a.m. I just don't think this day and age athlete does that. So it's I'd be more concerned with the fact that Michigan just had to fly back from the West Coast time zone and they're getting back acclimated. I think that's probably the better point to be made there. So yeah, it'll be an interesting one. Well, I'll give one out right now. I'll lock in leg 1 of what I think is going to be a 3-team parlay. I played Bowling Green -6.5, and I talked about this. Actually, I don't know if I talked about this on the show yet. I was talking about this with my buddy Joey Cheese this morning for a little bit, but yesterday I won my 2 4%ers, which were far more matchup based type handicaps than totally being so overly concerned with getting this great number, having a huge numerical edge, getting a ton of CLV. I think for me personally, I've done better this year when I just hone in on a matchup and just find the matchup type winner, like yesterday with Cornell, the Cornell press being a terrible matchup for Brown, Hampton being able to overwhelm NCAA. Those are my 2 4%ers yesterday. Both won easily. So I'm just going to try to do it again here. I think the number on this is probably fair at 6.5. I don't love laying points on the road, Rob Bino. It's never been my style. But here, I think I'm fine with it. I think Bowling Green could blow Western Michigan out tonight. I just this was a team that I was very high on in non-conference play. They had a great non-conference. They came into the league and they've struggled a little bit in league play. But I mean, they're a team that's going to overwhelm you defensively, right? That is the way that they're going to win games is being athletic, really defending, and they are 3-3 in league play. But the 3 losses, Miami of Ohio, Kent State, Akron. Is there anyone out there that's going to argue that those are far and away the 3 best offenses in this league, with Miami of Ohio being one of the best offenses in the country, right? To me, Rob, no shame in losing any of those games, because even though Bowling Green is solid, they're still not up in that tier, in my opinion, in this league. Where I do think they play is when they play some of these lesser teams. And surprisingly, they haven't covered these numbers yet. Over the weekend, they were an 8.5-point favorite against Eastern Michigan. I think maybe their standing was a little inflated coming in from non-conference play and then having to sort of lay some of these bigger numbers to the lesser teams. But they failed to cover that. I think they won but failed to cover at UMass as well. And so suddenly they're a little bit undervalued. And they play a Western Michigan team that turns the ball over as much as anyone in the conference, 286 nationally in turnovers. Boise, Bowling Green doesn't rebound the ball particularly well. I was at the Lemoyne Bowling Green game with Brian Power. I felt like Lemoyne kind of took it to them on the glass in the first half of that game, and then they kind of got in the game. But Western Michigan isn't gonna overwhelm you on the boards. So I look at this matchup. I see nothing that Western Michigan really does better than Bowling Green. And that turnover, the 286 nationally, turning it over close to 13 times a game, I think is where this one is, where the difference is in this one. Bowling Green is going to win games that can overwhelm you defensively. I feel like you get a big effort from them here. And to me, this is a double-digit Bowling Green win. I give Western Michigan very little edge for home court. So I'm going to lay it on the road. Not my style, but that's what I'm doing for this one today. And I'm going to have quite a few plays today. So check out that package that Rob and I have. But this is a 3%er for me. Picking this spot to jump in with a Bowling Green team I really like a lot.
Like it. You I'm staring at the clock here, Adam, thinking that 14 minutes left in the show. Probably that's my cue to go ahead and give my half, and then we'll figure out where we're going to get the third leg
good
of this parlay. Choices galore here for me tonight. I'm going to repeat what you just said, same for myself. A lot of plays here tonight on this card. I'm probably going to have 5, potentially 6. I'll give you one right here. And again, I do have my selection of games that I like, but I'm going to, we've talked a lot on this show, at least I have, about teams that I tag where totals are concerned. And I just can't get over how good St. Louis is offensively. I'll leave you guys with that thought, and then I'll give you the game that I'm going to use here, which is going to be TCU. Oklahoma State has been a team that been pretty accurate on all season long. For what it's worth, Steve Lutz's team, all offense, no defense, a lot of tempo. TCU, Jamie Dixon's team needs a win. You were talking before, Adam, about schedules that teams have had to play so far this season. And in the Big 12, there is no easy game for the most part. But for TCU, you're on a 4-game losing streak where you lose an OT to Kansas, who we're seeing is becoming the Kansas a lot of people expected. Arizona, BYU. And then after that trio, they fall short against Utah. I don't think you can blame them, in your second game in the Rocky Mountains in altitude after you've just played the 3 I listed before that. You lose 82-79. They're back home here against Oklahoma State. Very, very fair number here, I thought, as far as team total was concerned, at 84.5. Oklahoma State's dead last in the Big 12 in points allowed per game. It's 80 point something. They have no issue giving up anywhere between 85 and 100. We've seen it constantly all season long. I think TCU comes out here with a lot of fight at home tonight off the 4-game losing streak and finds Oklahoma State's defense pretty easy to penetrate. I'll give you a quote from Steve Lutz, head coach of Oklahoma State, who said, we have the team. I do believe that we do, that if we get better defensively, we can make a run in the Big 12 and get into the NCAA tournament. If offense was the only aspect of the game, I wouldn't doubt the head coach, but he's telling you right there, if we can get better defensively, we haven't seen it yet. I don't know that we're going to see it tonight. TCU more than capable. And one other thing here is TCU is very capable. You've talked a lot about their guards and how they dig in defensively. They're capable of scoring on the defensive end in this game too. So a lot of pace, a lot of scoring. I'll try the TCU side, team total up and over 84.5.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not muted. All right, here we go. Yeah, I like TCU in this matchup. I was a little put off by the number being as high as it was. I do think if this was bet down a little bit, which it looks like it started to, I think it opened 9. I did see it go to 8 some places. I think you could probably, if this got down to 7 or 7.5, I think I could probably be convinced to lay it with TCU. Something I've said all year about TCU is their perimeter defense. Those guards are really as good as any in the conference. Will be absolutely in your shorts. Great. I mean, go ask Florida how that went for them when Boogie Fland and Xavier Lee had to go up against those TCU guards, right? And really, really very unlucky to not have gotten one of those wins recently. The BYU game, the Kansas game, I mean, they had pretty much had Kansas beat. Another tough, go back to that TCU Arizona game. I think that was on this floor. They were only like they went off like 6.5 point underdog to Arizona, which I think was a lot lower than many expected. Now, not going to fault you for losing and not covering to Arizona. That's the number 1 team in the country. But the point is, like, I think there's a reason that the books are pricing TCU where they are, right? 8.5 point favorite. I think most people look at that and say, man, that's a premium number. but they probably have done, the odds makers have probably done that for a reason. Oklahoma State will turn it over. And, if TCU can really get to them with that ball pressure, there's stops that turn into easy points. The easy points help your total, and it probably helps them cover the spread. So I lean toward the TCU side. And so I can't disagree with your team total over in this game. All right. So Rob, we've got two legs of the parlay locked in. I'm going to throw a game at you, and all you have to do is tell me if you have an opinion or not. And if you don't, we'll move on to a different game. That's how we're going to figure out the third leg here in the last 10 minutes, is where our opinion lines up. So NC State, Clemson, do you have an opinion or no?
I don't. Not a firm.
Okay. Duquesne, St. Louis. I think you may have said you do have an opinion.
Yeah, I do. I do have a firm
All right,
opinion.
Listen, the St. Louis Billikens cracking the top 25. We talked about Miami of Ohio. I feel like we would be remiss if we didn't give the Billikens their moment on the show now that they're a top 25 team. So to kick us off, and I'll let you know if I agree or disagree. St. Louis, Duquesne.
Well, my opinion clearly here comes from a totals perspective. This offense, Adam, in this league, when did they play? They played VCU a couple of weeks ago, right? I remember you used the play in the parlay. They made VCU look kind of middle of the package as far as A10 is concerned. And ever since then, they've done nothing but destroy people. And nobody can stop this offense whatsoever that Schertz has put together for St. Louis. So a couple of things I liked here, because Duquesne plays at fast pace. I thought I like this game, full game to go over. I like the St. Louis team total over. You know me, sides are going to be secondary to me. If I had to play, I thought maybe, Duquesne has the capability to score is probably what would scare me off of 9. But the other part of my brain says St. Louis is just the dominant force, home, road, neutral, anywhere in this league right now. So if you're coming from a side perspective with your opinion, I will lean your way. But total wise, I think this full game gets over 165.5. I'm looking at 166 now. And I think St. Louis probably makes the 90 mark. But I would want to include Duquesne. I'll leave it at that. I would want to include Duquesne and play full game over.
I'm good with that. I actually think that that's the best way to play this game, because as you referenced the VCU St. Louis game, that game was never really close. VCU made a little bit of a run. I did have St. Louis as a best bet in that game. The problem is you're going to have a hard time finding good spots to play St. Louis on the side at this point. It's just they're now they're nationally ranked in a league where they're always going to be a favorite. So even though I think like Duquesne here, I think they're likely going to win this game. I don't know if I can see a world where Duquesne wins tonight, unless they just go. I guess if Duquesne wins tonight, it means they went absolutely nuclear offensively. Right. That's the only way they're winning this game. So if you think Duquesne's got enough juice, home game, nationally ranked team, which they could probably be one of their best crowds of the season, it's likely going to be on the offensive end. It probably means they're playing with their hair on fire, which is good for pace, which they want to play fast anyway. And Rob, let's just look at their A10 games to this point. The last two games, like Fordham, that was a little bit of a, they kind of had the lead that whole game. And I think Duquesne knew that they could start to kill clock and like just kind of put Fordham away. Not a great offensive team. It's a big time transition year for Fordham, first year for Mike Magpeo. Like that was never really a game where I felt like they needed to go like totally like full bore. That one stays under. Dayton's pretty good defensively. Like when they're at full strength, and I don't have offhand what their personnel was in that game, but that 71-65 game stayed under as well. And I think it was probably because, Dayton's was able to get some stops against Duquesne and just sort of salt that win away. The three previous games where Duquesne was able to like sort of, ramp it up a little bit, 97-90 to St. Joe's, 93-80 to VCU, which of course we know now is a VCU team that's Phil Martelli Jr. that's wants to play like that a little bit, that's willing to go and beat you in a 90 to 80 type game. And then Davidson, 89-83. To me, this game feels more like those games than the last two where, like, I just don't know that St. Louis is going to take the air out of the ball and just, like, be okay with trying to put you away on the road like that. I think St. Louis is just going to score until they can't score anymore. If they win, if they blow them out, it's probably because they got 80 plus, close to 90. So I'm good with the over here. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, seventh fastest possession length in the country. These two teams, the third and fastest tempo inside conference. The games you referenced, Adam, where Duquesne didn't score very well. Fordham, Dayton, they're all sluggish style offensive teams. And we often reference the fact that a fast-paced team against a team that wants to just crawl can be affected by that. But when they're not affected, when you're going to play a team like St. Louis that's going to go get buckets, it's the same thing Schertz did at Indiana State with Robbie Avila when they went to the tournament. It's just an up and down team that can shoot it. St. Louis shoots it so well. We talked about Miami O being the number one team in the country effective field goal percentage. St. Louis is 3. So right there with them. The only reason I didn't isolate St. Louis team totals is because I do think Duquesne, since they play rapid and they shoot well, I wouldn't want to exclude them from the whole thing here, full game.
Yeah, I even said the other day, listen, Drew Joyce has done a great job with this Duquesne team. I've come around on Duquesne a little bit, and him being a decent coach and them being able to, if they're a functioning team, they can score the basketball. I wouldn't want to take them out either. Again, I think it would take a Herculean effort for them to win this game, but hanging around certainly possible. And then Rob Bino, I think the more likely way they hang around would be like if they're going to cover 8.5, it's going to be because they're in that like 6 to 8 point range, which of course we know is extension. That's the prime range for extension on a basketball game. So I'm with you. I rarely like a total this much, but I really like this one. So that'll be the third leg of our parlay. What's the number on that right now?
I show if we shop Adam, you can find 165.5, but I think in fair, the more common number is 166 at this point.
We can go with 166. So yeah, we'll try a 3-teamer today. Traditional 3-teamer, 6-1 odds. I'll close the show out with this, and Steve, this is like pretty much what I was saying in the breakdown of that game. He says I got the spread is good here too. I lean Bowling Green, but the spread is legit. Yeah, I think the number is fair. Like 6.5. I don't think I've covered any crazy like line edge. I just think Bowling Green's gonna. This is me going back to the matchup, which is like something I'm probably going to do more going forward. Similar to Hampton last night, I wasn't dying to lay 5.5 with the Hampton Pirates, but it was just such a good matchup for them. They won the game by 20. Bowling Green, I think this is a really good matchup for them. I think they come out and win at least by 10. So that's kind of what the point I was trying to make there. That is a 3% play for me. That will be the first leg of this parlay. Bowling Green minus 6.5. Rob Bino's going to go TCU team total over 84.5. And then to make it a 3-teamer, the consensus pick for Rob and I today, St. Louis Duquesne over 166. A lot more where that came from. $5 Tuesday. We'll both have a play up for $5. And of course, the CBB double the firepower package. You get all of my picks, all of Rob Bino's picks for 3 days. Anything we put out. We have gotten in right at the 11 a.m. gun. The powers that be will be thrilled. And we'll be back tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. for more Full Court Press. See you guys then.